Rastafarians were locked up for just existing because we refused to accept any white Jesus, any white God, any white deity. Disrespectful behavior by the Jamaican police force. I have never given up a continent for this island. And we're making demands on the Jamaican government now. We become the government. Enough is enough. We have even sued the Queen of England that that lady be dismissed and that she be criminally charged. A black judge, Jamaican judge, ruled against us. All of this is not surprising. Chronics is a little different, not cosmetic action, but we want real action immediately.
Connect Africa.
Welcome, Ras Miguel Lorne to Connect Africa YouTube channel.
Yes, greetings and blessings. Welcome.
Okay, yeah. So, one of the things that we talk about in our platform is about the African returnees, particularly the Rastafari community, because they are the one, who took the bravery and keep on repatriating to the motherland, to Africa, regardless of or despite all the challenges that they are facing in the continent. To check our videos for our viewers, I will put the link so far what we did, the research-based film and also follow-up interviews on the Rastafari. I will put it in the link in this video, and also I will put the links in the comment section for you. So it is in this manner that today we invited Ras Miguel Lorne to shed some light on the event that's actually happening today, the Respect Rastafari press conference, or to say it exactly like the Rasta press conference. So this will be on, so today on 8th September, exactly from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock according to Jamaican time, I believe.
Yes.
So here with us is Ras Miguel. Just to say a little word about Ras Miguel, he is a human rights lawyer. He's the owner of Headstart Books and Crafts store, and also he and his team published more than 200 books so far, and also he's a radio presenter. But one more thing, today he is also part of the organizers of this Respect Rastafari press conference campaign, if I may call it. First of all, tell us about yourself, and then tell us what is the aim of this campaign, and what is the motive behind, and why now?
Well, firstly, a little about myself is that we have, our law firm, myself and my son who is also a lawyer, and we have filed over 200 cases against the government of Jamaica.
Wow.
On behalf of the grassroots people, persons who have been illegally charged, illegally locked up, falsely imprisoned, falsely prosecuted, and so on. And we have been successful in 90% of them. In fact, I would say we have been successful in all. In about 90% of them, the government has settled out of court.
Okay.
So you get an idea as to how badly this situation is in Jamaica when it comes down to breaches of poor people's human rights. It's very bad. The police you know, and the authorities behave badly. We have even sued the Queen of England. When she came here last in 2002, we brought a case against her and her government for reparations. The matter went to the court in Jamaica, and a black judge, Jamaican judge, ruled against us, saying that we have not proven that we are the descendants of those who were enslaved, and which we find as a travesty. You know, how else would I be here if I wasn't the children of those who brought me here? So that matter went before the court, and that was the ruling against us. We plan to sue again, this time now using DNA. In fact, we sent out copies of the judgment worldwide to many of our brothers and sisters in the States, United States, in England, in Germany, in Africa, so that persons can see the line and the thinking of judges that you come before. So I know subsequent lawsuits have been using DNA so as to close the gap, to give them less excuses to throw out our lawsuits. So the next suit I'm going to file, we're going to get DNA evidence showing that we not only come from Africa, but which part of Africa we came from. That's a little background. Today's conference now, as many of you know it as conference, today's conference, the 8th of September, 2021, has come about because recently in Jamaica, we have been experiencing a boldness and an increased attitude, blatant violations of human rights, especially for Rastafarians. Now, in terms of breaches of human rights of Rastafarians, this is not something new. Since the 1930s, ever since Rastafari rise up in Jamaica, there have been numerous persecutions, both persecutions and prosecutions. Rastafarians were locked up for just existing, for, you know, brothers and sisters, our meetings, they were raided. So you find brothers like the Honorable Leonard Howell, one of our early announcer of the Rastafari faith in the 1930s, being locked up and jailed on fictitious charges for sedition, you know. So we have an upsurge of this abuses and disrespect against Rastafarians. And we see it, first of all, a group of us had met to discuss the ganja situation. The ganja laws have been amended, and it has given, this is after years of agitation, it has given certain rights to Rastafarians. One such right is that we can use it for sacramental purposes. And that we can actually plant 5 trees at our yard. The 5 trees, that's general. 5 trees, anybody in Jamaica can have 5 trees. With Rastafarians, we can have, and also we can use it for sacramental purposes at our Naya Bingi, at our churchical ceremony, and so on. But it doesn't seem like the government has educated the police properly as to how to relate to the new situation. Although this has been about since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have brothers still being arrested. You're on your way to Nyabingi and you have a couple pounds of herbs, you're arrested, or the herbs is taken away, and that type of continuous situation. So we had met to deal with agitation towards those situations. And in the midst of those deliberations now, and meetings and reasoning, up came the upsurge in the abuses of Rastafarians. And so the main one was the situation on the 22nd of July, 2021, when a young sister, 19 years old, Queen Nzinga Candace King, when she was disrespected by police officers on the road. She was in a taxi, she was disrespected. She was arrested, taken to the police station, and then taken to court for, breaches, disorderly conduct that they charged her for. She pleaded not guilty. The officer who charged her and made the complaint was not in court. But somehow or other, the judge found her guilty, charged her $6,000 or 10 days, 6,000 Jamaican dollars or 10 days. She was then taken to the police station where she was summarily trimmed by a police officer.
$1,000 for what?
Just straight abuse, that these things happen.
Yeah.
I should also point out that I had taken a matter to court way back in 1981 on behalf of a young man at the time named Kirk Johnson. And why we had taken that matter to court was that Kirk had passed his examination to go from primary school to high school here in Jamaica. And because he was dreadlocks, that school did not want to accept him with his dreadlocks.
Okay, classical, things.
Yes, way back in 1981, and we took the matter to court, and the judge ruled that under the Constitution, he was entitled to his freedom of expression, and he was entitled to his freedom of religion. So the judge ordered him to go to school, and the school, being a government school, had to acquiesce to that ruling. So way back in 1981, we had this problem, and we thought that that was settled.
Yeah.
I have brought lawsuits against the government of Jamaica for police trimming Rastafarians at places outside on the road or at the station, and the Attorney General settled those matters. So now to see this happening in 2021, you can imagine how, how flabbergasted we are, and that's outrageous. So the treatment of her, and even while she was in police custody, by the time she had spent about 5 days in custody, and when her mother came to pay the fine, normally in Jamaica, if the fine is $6,000 or 10 days, and you spend 5 days in custody, that would be half of the 10 days, then you would pay half of the fine, because you have served half of the time already. Nevertheless, in this case, the police insisted that they wanted the $6,000, despite the fact that she had served half the time. And so the mother had to pay the $6,000. Even while she was in custody at the Four Parts Police Station, which is an outstation in one of the rural parishes in Jamaica, in Clarendon, whilst there, her menstrual cycle imposed itself on her. And whilst in custody, she was provided with no sanitary convenience, no sanitary paraphernalia.
Wow.
So, you know, this type of ill treatment, we figure now has to stop. And so we meaning Rastafarians, we demonstrated. We had a first demonstration in Montego Bay at the Sam Sharp Square. Sam Sharp, a national hero. Then we had another demonstration at a rally in Kingston at the Mandela Park. Mandela, freedom fighter, we think that was the appropriate place. And then we had planned a march for Marcus Garvey Day, which was the 17th of August. But it rained incessantly that day on the 17th of August. There was heavy rain, so we didn't have the march. But nevertheless, we had a gathering in the rain at the Marcus Garvey Shrine at National Heroes Park. So we have been continuing the agitation. Some of us have been on television, some of us have been on radio, constantly pointing out. In the midst of all that now came, after that Nzinga case, at another police station in Jamaica, at the Brownstown police station in the parish of St. Anne. St. Anne is the parish where, from which Marcus Garvey came, from which Bob Marley came, and that's the parish where Bob Marley is buried, Brownstown. And the police there one night abused and disrespected Javon and Justine Cullum, two brothers. They were in the square waiting for a taxi to go home. Now, because of the COVID situation, we have nightly curfews in Jamaica. And the police were claiming that they were on the road after the curfew hours. They explained to the police that they were waiting on either a taxi or someone to come for them, which was just a few minutes after 8 o'clock, which is the curfew cutoff time. There were many people on the road in the vicinity where they were. There are other persons there waiting for taxis, waiting for transport. There were over 100 people in that vicinity. There were bars, alcoholic bars that were opened. At least 2 bars were opened. There were people frying chicken on the road. You have jerk chicken that people are selling. And there were people buying. A lot of activity taking place. So the brothers were a bit too Rastafarian brothers. So they were surprised as to why they were singled out, you know. Nevertheless, they were pepper sprayed, beaten, and taken to the Brownstown police station. At the police station, they were further manhandled and so on. And one police officer even threatened to put them in cell 1. And the reason he gave for putting them in cell 1, because he, the police officer, said there were sodomites in cell 1, and he wanted to put them in cell 1 where the sodomites would sodomize them. You know, in Jamaica, we call sodomites battymen. So that explains it a little more graphic. And so they resisted and so on. News got to their mother, who came to the station, and their mother at first was prevented from entering the station. She stood up. Her mother is also dreadlock Rastafarian, and she insisted that her children were not going to spend the night in jail. Her importunity, her efforts eventually led to the police agreeing to give them bail. They were charged for assault, resisting arrest, breach of COVID conditions, and so on. During that hour of the night in Jamaica, when the mother wanted to bail them, she had to get papers and go and get a justice of the peace to recommend her. All these things had to be done during the night there until late, that she came back with the papers. When she came back, they didn't even want her to come in the station. She had to stand at the door, hand them the papers, all these things. Disrespectful behavior by the Jamaican police force. Eventually, they were bailed and left the station late in the night. And that was how they were prevented from being placed in cell 1, where they would have encountered, probably murder would have taken place, because in Jamaica, by and large, 95% of the people, last opinion polls that were taken showed that 95% of the people in Jamaica are against sadomastic behavior. Then we have had other situations. We had a young lady, Chrisanne Swaby, recently, where she was brutalized, beaten. She's from a Rastafari family. Her sister come to Nyabingi and so on. She was beaten by the police in the Market District in Maypen, Clarendon. That mattered before the court, and then she was charged for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest. Young sister again, you know. Then we have a brother, Justin Langmore. He is actually serving time in a prison in Jamaica, in the General Penitentiary prison, General Penitentiary, where you hear Black Huro sing about how brutal it is. And whilst there, a warder beat him, bust up his head. Even though the prison is a hospital, they had to take him out to take him to the public hospital. You get better treatment there. They had to do a CAT scan on his head to see if he had any fractures. They had to shave out part of his hair so that they could treat him. And he's a Rastafarian brethren. So we just see this continuous situation of Rastafarians being ill-treated.
Yeah.
So we are having this conference today to highlight these things to the public, to the press, to the world. And we're making demands on the Jamaican government now to say, look, enough is enough.
Yeah.
What mechanisms to be put in place? For example, when a principal deny a dreadlock child from coming to school, we want that principal to be either dismissed summarily or charged and brought before the criminal courts.
So this is one of the demandments?
This is one of the demandments.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, because that's also my next question. Maybe you can go through what are these demands?
Right. We are also demanding that, for example, the police lady and the police in charge at the Four Parts police station on the 22nd of July, that lady be dismissed and that she be criminally charged. And that those who gave her the scissors, those who were present, that they also be penalized as soon as possible. The police commissioner has promised an investigation in the matter. It is now more than a month and we have not heard anything from him. So we know it's their usual drag feet policy, that you drag out things, hoping that the energy in us and the fire in us will dissipate so that they can gradually push it into file 13 and then, treat it as another 9-day wonder. Well, we're making sure that that doesn't happen in this situation, and that is why the continued agitation. We're demanding that the government, the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, that they educate the police force with regard to the new ganja policy, in that you are entitled to carry whether 5 pounds, 10 pounds to our Nyabingi session. Our Nyabingi session is where we meet to praise His Majesty, honor the Honorable Marcus Garvey, celebrate Ethiopian Christmas, celebrate Ethiopian New Year, celebrate the visit of His Imperial Majesty to Jamaica. So we usually have these functions like for 5 days, for 7 days, and so on, and we usually have ganja as part of our sacramental ceremonial tradition. So we are demanding, because we are comparing it. We are saying, when there is a wanted man, when the police or the government, they want a criminal, they're making allegations against a man, a gunman who is wanted. They put up his picture in every police station across Jamaica. All over, you see his picture. So we are saying the new ganja policy must be put up, highlighted in every police station, that every police become familiar with the new look. We're also having difficulties with the courts because some of the judges are not au fait with the new law. And so we find Rastafarians are subject to all sort of varied machinations. So we have also written to the Chief Justice for him to do something in terms of educating the judges, especially the lower court parish judges, who have to deal with people more regularly than the High Court, so that they can know that there is a new dispensation with regards to ganja, and that better treatment will come from the courts, and so on. There are other demands that we figure that the Education Act need to change. The certain human rights behavior supposed to be accorded to Rastafari, you know, and that generally, for example, we have sent out letters more than 2 weeks now, more than 3 weeks now, that we had sent out letters to the Minister of National Security and Justice. He's responsible for the police and soldiers. To the Minister of Justice, Delroy Chuck, we have sent letters to him. We have sent to the Chief Justice, and we have not had a reply from none of them, despite more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. So we have sent out new letters now to the Prime Minister, the Office of the Prime Minister, and to other ministers. Just last week we sent out those letters. So we are keeping this eye French now, so as to sensitize the public and to draw them up, to say, look, we have sent you letters. In other words, when we carry out peaceful protests, when we carry out peaceful demands, you don't pay with no mind. If we start to behave ugly and to thing, then you're gonna say, look, what violent people, what type of people, but we're human beings, and oppression will draw resistance.
Exactly like any other normal people.
Definitely. And if we keep writing you letters, not getting answers, we keep making agitation and so on and so forth, and you're still not paying us any mind, then you know, we will have to take other course of action. So we'll certainly, on the 4th of October, outside the Brownstown police station, we'll be carrying out a demonstration. They are also due to go to court on the, you know, on the Callum brothers, that's Javon and Justin Callum. They are due to go to court on the 4th of October at Brownstown. We'll be demonstrating outside the courthouse also, and we'll be demonstrating outside the Brownstown police station on the 4th of October, so as to continue the agitation. So, and the conference now, we have made contacts with our brothers and sisters, Rastafarians abroad, in Canada, the United States, in England, in Africa, Netherlands here now, and so on. Netherlands.
Sure.
Which we have always felt a close affiliation to Netherlands. One through reggae music, you have always adopted a lot of reggae music. And you, in terms of Europe, you had a by far more liberal ganja policy.
True.
You know,
You
had a more liberal ganja policy than many others long before it became the in thing. So all in all, we are saying that Rastafarians, this persecution this disrespect, which started from the 1930s. I could give you a plethora of
cases, yeah.
Yes, of violations that have taken place against us from the 1930s when brothers were put in prison for just being Rastafarian, the 1940s, 1950s, when Bobo Camp and Prince Emmanuel and them in 1958, when you know, the Bobo camps were raided and brothers beaten in 1963, 1966, when brothers' homes were raided at Bakawal. Bakawal is in the western part of Kingston, where our houses were bulldozed, mashed down, our furniture items were destroyed, no compensation for Rastafarians. Rastafarians that were at Shantytown, that's in Greenwich Farm, Greenwich Town area. They were all on the fishing beach. They were also brutalized. Then, of course, the Coral Gardens incident in 1963, when brothers and sisters were brutalized, not just in Coral Gardens, which is in Montego Bay, but all over Jamaica. Rastafarians in St. Thomas, which is over 150 miles from Montego Bay. Rastafarians are brutalized. Rastafarians who were in Kingston, who had nothing to do with Montego Bay, were also brutalized, locked up by the police, by the state, this worldwide. Specifically for the Coral Gardens, the government has, in the 21st century year, this since happened in 1963, the government has apologized for that incident. In other words, the atrocious was so blatant and so bad that now the government has apologized for that.
When did it become legal for, you know, in Jamaica for growing 5 pots of plants, or, you know?
When the amendment was made, I think, in 2015.
2015, okay.
The amendment.
Okay.
But you know, we are still continuing because they still call it the Dangerous Drugs Act. Can you imagine? They're still calling the law the Dangerous Drugs Act. So what they have done is amend the Dangerous Drugs Act. But we are continuing the agitation for full legalization, because these partial, temporary type legalization only seem to cause more confusion. So, you know, we are continuing that agitation.
It's interesting that, you know, you throw some light on this, you know, on the number of incidents, even after Jamaica has made it legal for personal use and sacraments in events like Nyabingi, and in different Rastafari gathering. It still goes on because, you know, for many people it's taken like for granted that, you know, always Rasta people are from Jamaica. I come from Ethiopia, and my husband belongs to that community from Shashamane, and you see anyone for Ethiopians with dreadlocks is always from Jamaica. And, you know, people ask him, and also this is true for all over the world, and it takes them by surprise that when you talk about, there are still challenges, that people are not, the Rastafari people are not treated equally with other people in Jamaica, and how much percentage of the, you know, the total population of the Jamaica that Rastafari hold. So it's really interesting, and that I'm glad that you went through that those cases, and also this is really personal for me, because I always say this in different interviews. I raised 2 boys who are growing in this culture, and it just frustrates me what kind of world it's going to await for them, you know. It's not only in Jamaica, challenge of the Rastafari are everywhere in the world. I made a research in 20, that was actually my research master's in 2018, as a challenge of the Rastafari, and in Ethiopia, the paradoxes of belonging in the country where they call home. Yeah, so what do you...
I would like to point out,
yeah,
all of this is not surprising. It's not surprising. I tell you why. From the 1930s coming right up, in other words, 90 years now of this persecution, 90 years, almost 100 years. It's not surprising, and I tell you why. When you have in bondage in this colonial type setup, and you advocate the principle of the black God, that is the root of all of this persecution against Rastafari. Because we refuse to accept any white Jesus, any white God, any white deity. And because we go as far as saying that Haile Selassie is the returned Messiah, and we praise Haile Selassie, it's not just that we are Rastafari, we are dreadlock Rastafarians who have identified our God, identified our deity, and we have rejected your white imposition upon us. That is the root of all of this persecution. So the early Rastafarians did not have dreadlocks. Many of them, they just had little beards, and they were beaten and brutalized. How dare you advocate a principle that God is black, that you are black, and that your God comes from Africa, and that you want to repatriate to Africa? You are, when you make a statement like that, and says, I have never given up a continent for this island. We have never given that up. And that we look forward to the day when we will return to the land of our mothers and fathers. When you have those principles, you're going to get persecution, because you are now rejecting Babylon in its totality. And you're now saying, look, you could beat us, you could brutalize, just like they did our mothers and fathers on the plantation. They beat them to give up their name. They beat them to give up their philosophy. They killed them. But that DNA is in us. And that's the root of the persecution, that they really feel offended that we have rejected the British monarchy, we have rejected colonialism, and we are saying not only have we rejected you, but you are Babylon. And that we are now saying that we advocate the principle of the black family, the black God, the black majesty, Ethiopia, and consequently, as long as we hold this position, we expect to be treated the way we are. But we're not going to take it lying down, and this is why we have a conference, this is why we continue to agitate, and this is why, because we don't want our children, my children are dreadlock Rastafarians, we don't want our children to grow up feeling that it's the norm to suffer.
Yeah. Now I want to take you, I have seen that in the campaign, the little trailer that has been released prior to this campaign had included prominent reggae singers who are from Jamaica, like Chronics. I always say this, especially in the community, the Rastafari community in Shashamane, there are challenges amongst the legality, which is now part of it is solved because they have been provided this national ID, but also there's an economical problem. And I always say that those, one of the things that Rastafari is known, or actually people associate reggae music with it. And there are reggae singers who are in this culture, who are really, an ambassador for this movement. And if only I say, because they say a lot about Ethiopia, a lot about Shashamane, and if they can just look at these old elderly people, or if it can be also young people in Shashamane, and help them economically, you know, so that not only advocating for them on the stage or in their song, but also really help them truly practically. So that was like, this is my idea and the way I see it. Now, seeing that these singers in this campaign, I want to ask you, how much are they involved? You know, you are a human rights lawyer. You have been bringing so much of these cases to the court. So how much are they involved in advocating for the rights of the Rastafari to be respected?
Not as much as we would have liked. Their participation has been marginal. Some of them do a lot in terms of helping some of the grassroots people in Jamaica, you know. But, and a man will do a thing here, a mother who needs a little help to feed her children or to send them to school, or a brother who needs a little help. They will hand something to him, they will give something to him, and so on. But we have never been able to get them to do it structurally. In other words, rather than give a mother a little something that she might can eat today or tomorrow, she and her children, we have always advocated, for example, if you were to buy 5 sewing machines and give that little community of about 10 mothers sewing machines, then she would be able now to sew school uniforms when, you know, when school time come, sew little clothing, and therefore build her own economy. So she wouldn't have to stretch her hand to next week. You see what I mean? They have not thought the process along such lines. So a little thing here and a little thing there, stop a little gap now. But the overall structure within the movement, we don't have that from many of the artists and so on. And that we would like to see move to another level from many of them. Chronix is a little different, because there are times when he does participate in our meetings, not just to come to be on the stage or so on. He's in the organizing and the decision-making process. So he's a little exceptional to the general rule. You know, there are brothers and sisters who feel caught up about it and will say things. Buju Banton has set up a foundation where he goes to different schools, villages, communities, and make meaningful, you know, donations and assistance. Buju has done that. It's not within a Rastafari framework as such, you know, and so on, which we would like to see.
Sure.
So, but we are emerging, we are learning, you know, and I am confident that as we go along, gradually more and more brothers and sisters within the reggae fraternity, music fraternity, will do things in a more structured way, and that we make progress. One of the things, for example, I, along with others, with 3 other brothers, we revived the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party. This is a party founded by the Honorable Marcus Garvey way back in 1929. We have revived it. And we would like to build it to a stage where we can challenge for political power in Jamaica. Instead of we going to the prime minister to ask to change this in schools, change it at the prisons, change that there, we become the government.
Exactly, which can solve actually many problems, because many point out that decentralization is probably the main problem, that the fact that Rastafari movement lacks a political structure, which many also commend it, but also there are people who point it out as a problem. Okay, sorry to cut you.
No, you're not cutting me. You're inspiring my mind. Yes. So we have revived that party, and we are thinking, no, but I can understand, because for years, including myself, Rastafarians saw politics as politricks. We saw it as divisive, especially in Jamaica, where we have two major political parties that instituted the violence that we now have in Jamaica. It was caused by the political parties. They used to give out guns to their political supporters. They have built what we call garrisons. The garrisons are political enclaves that one party has over here, one party over there, and you dare not cross the line because you'll be shot and killed. The political parties, the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party, are the godfathers of the violence generally, because it started out as political violence and then it escalated to violence generally. So much so now that the political parties cannot control it anymore, because the political parties are not the ones now giving out the guns. And so obviously they do give out, but people now find ways and means to get the guns from North America, from United States. 95% of the guns come from the United States, or through, there was a time when many of it came through Haiti, you know, and so on. But they were made in the United States. And we are seriously looking at a lawsuit to sue some of the gun manufacturers in America, because we can identify guns here which come from particular manufacturers there. And the Americans are doing nothing to prevent the guns from reaching these impressionable hands in Jamaica. But that is aspect of Rastafari. It takes time to get them out of that myopic view and to realize that we are living in a world where political power is actually essential if you are going to go forward, not just in Jamaica, but even if we go to Africa. We must have some say in the political structure. We saw how devastating that was for Marcus Garvey in the 1920s, when even though the land was in Liberia, was slated and earmarked for the UNIA to return to Africa, we saw how the United States was able to influence the president and prime minister in Liberia, and the land was taken away and leased to the Firestone Rubber Company to plant rubber trees for their industry. So, you know, it's essential that we have political, economic, and structural power worldwide. And that will make a big difference within Rastafari trod upon this universe.
Yeah, true. Yeah, words of sound. Now, what are your expectations out of today's campaign?
To highlight the atrocities and to bring action, real action, not cosmetic action, not the usual placatory smile and sorry. We have had that. You know, sorry for this has happened. This should never have happened. We're going to see to it. We have heard a lot of that from these persons. But we want real action immediately. It's important that you demonstrate, not just to us now, you demonstrate to the police force that when you do things like these, you're going to be dismissed forthwith. And that you are going to be called upon whatever compensation the government agreed to give, it's going to come out, if you are still in the force, it's going to come out of your salary. You see what I mean? Real action. When a principal deny a child education, real action. That principal has to go because you are inimical to progress. You know, real action. That many Rastafarians who grow ganja now for their sacramental purposes, police raid them and cut down and take away the ganja and then carry it to people to sell for them. So after you go through so much struggle, carry water on your back, all these things, and so on. No Rastafarian should be paying any money to the Cannabis Licensing Authority, the CLA, that they have set up to pay any money to get a license to grow ganja. In Antigua, Antigua is another sister Caribbean island. In Antigua, the government there, moving towards this decriminalizing and so on, have made it clear. Yes, the government there in Antigua made it clear and says, look, the first license in Antigua, the government says, look, you all have suffered all these years. So the first set of license was given to Rastafarians in Antigua. Similar situation in St. Vincent, another sister Caribbean island, whereby the farmers were given license. Jamaica, no. You know, that continued disrespect, that you are asking us to we must pay 10,000 US dollars, then we must pay, we must put up chain link fence 10 feet high with barbed wire at the top. We must cut drivable road. We must have cameras. Where the hell are we going to get all of those things? So you are deliberately setting up an industry for foreigners, for investors from abroad, for rich people, not for us, the grassroots people. That is how Jamaica behaves. Jamaica is really a Gestapo country, a fascist country. That's for all the people to understand. You have got to go through all sorts of tribulations to endure in Jamaica. It's really a fascist country. They are so used by the British and Americans that they're so licky. They take so much aid, so much loan, so much grants from these countries that they cannot tell these countries no when they call upon them to do anything of principle.
Interesting. I always like the reasoning with Rasta people because you really learn a lot, you know, really. So, thank you for that. But finally, I would like to give you the floor to, you know, for any message that you would like to get across. Mostly my video are viewed by the African diaspora, but also people from at home. So what would you like to say to other people who view this?
Well, as you mentioned at home in Ethiopia, that stirs in me because we would certainly want to see the fighting stop between our brothers and sisters in Tigray and the rest of Ethiopia. We feel very disheartened when we see that taking place. We do not want Ethiopia to be divided. And some of us were thinking now to use the 2nd of November to make a call for Ethiopia, you know, that all around the world to stand with Ethiopia. We're really sorry for the way things have turned out in Tigray. But we still think that some amount of dialogue, some amount of compromise, some amount of yielding can take place to solve some of that problem. We would love to see that because Ethiopia means so much to Africa Africans in Africa and outside of Africa. So some or other. And we feel helpless to be sitting down and watch that taking place. So we must find a way to do something. When Ethiopia was invaded by Italy way back in 1935, you know, the Ethiopians around the world rallied.
Yeah.
The Africans around the world rallied to the cause of Ethiopia. So we would like to find a way to rally now to see how we can heal the wounds and restore Ethiopia's greatness.
That's really an interesting point. Yeah, go.
Right. In terms of Rastafari worldwide, we're not begging anything. You know, we want to make that very clear. What we want really is, just like we say, basic Rastafari respect for what we are. We will never change. Haile Selassie is our pivotal focus. You know, we study his works, we think, we just, the brothers at the Peacemakers Association, they just put out what is called, I don't know if you can see it there, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie Utterance Bible.
Okay.
That's what we call it. These are words of His Majesty that we have now set out in a biblical form. Biblical, where you have chapters and verse, because His Majesty's speeches cover so many areas. This is who we are. Don't try to change us. And we will never, we were never slaves. We were enslaved. But if a man put a gun to your head and tell you to drive, that doesn't make you a driver. That doesn't mean I'm less of a lawyer or an engineer or an architect. I drive because you put a gun to my head. And that was what happened to us. So we're never slaves, and we must never use the word slave in regards to ourselves. Never. We remain princesses, prince, warriors, kings, and so on. You know, and those are terms developed by white people to try to keep us and make us think like slaves. No, we are great people, and we have a greater ancestry than the white man. When we were building pyramids and building churches from the ground down, as in Lalibela, when we were building civilizations, you know, civilizations that came out of the Nile Valley, from the Olduvai Gorge, when we were creating things, we have the DNA of Dinkinesh.
Yeah.
You know, so at that time, the white man, was still eating out of skulls and eating raw meat, never had no civilization. So you can't lead me. You can't lead me. I'm not racist, but I put race first. And I have a history to back up whatever I say, a glorious history. So I cannot stand, you know, things. And I would like to say to my brothers and sisters, I am displeased when I see so many Africans trying to go over into Europe and to leave Africa. That cannot be good. Let us stay and build Africa. Let's all the brains of the world, those who are inside and those who are outside, we can build Africa. We don't need these people. We don't need them to teach us anything. We have it here. We have the knowledge and so on, and we can make things. We don't need their vaccine. If we need vaccine, we can make vaccine. We survived many of these diseases hundreds of years ago. We can survive it now. We can survive COVID. They are the cause of it. You don't go back to who caused it to solve it. No, they are dangerous. We didn't put it on the earth, but we can solve it. None of these diseases has come out of our loins. So I give thanks for this interview, and heal all the people, heal all those who, and you must do something. You can't just sit down and wish for it and pray for it or find fault and so on. Add to the discourse, add to the conversation, find ways and means to do something. and let's build that civilization and that house and that greatness together. Jah, Rastafari, Selassie the first and forevermore.
Let's give thanks, Ras Miguel Lorne, for your time. It's my wish and my prayer with you, and you know, to be successful in this campaign, and also really to have some change. If there's anything that in my platform I can use, I will be happy. So definitely this is not the first time we will meet again. Thank you for our viewers for being with us, and for those of you who are new, please be a family of our platform and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like it, if if you find this video interesting, give it a thumbs up. And that's it for today. Thank you, Ras Miguel.
It's an honor for me, and I thank you. And
likewise,
continue doing exceptional work.
Thank you.
Blessings and honor. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Very good.